A very, very good evening and a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Pick and Pay. And welcome from, as you can probably guess based on my wardrobe, an absolutely freezing Johannesburg. Well, I mean, it's not quite Arctic, but by the standards of the relatively mild autumn, winter arrived this morning with an unwelcome blast of cold. And so I've been wrapped up all day, doing my best to keep warm. It is very difficult when, like both of my guests this evening, you have almost 0% body fat and are thus trying to fight off the cold with little natural resistance. But what will help it is some terrific wine. And that wine relates to the outfit as well, because my first guest, I'll be speaking to in just a moment, is somebody I played golf with right here, the King's Barnes golf course. And that was just a few years ago. And we will discuss the caliber of his golf in some detail, provided he hasn't hung up by now because he knows what's coming, but also talk about a really exciting event happening at his estate and have a look at two slightly different wines. And that'll be in just a moment. Then a little further on down the show, we chat to one of the friendliest guys in the world of wine, the man who arrived at university on a hockey scholarship and left as a member of the Marty's front row. He looks like a barrel of wine. He's a barrel of laughs and of smiles. And he is, behind that humble facade and very easygoing manner, one of the most naturally gifted winemakers we have in the country. And it is always a great pleasure to have him on the show, particularly because he's got a new range. And I'm almost certain they've somehow got the pricing wrong, because I've seen what these cost. I've tasted them. Go and buy them all now before the price triples, which you probably will next week. The man in question is Danie Steytler. His estate is Kaapzicht and the range is the Jacques Steytler, and he'll be coming to us just a little later on in the show. I think he's on his fourth braai of the day, and we're getting him just before number 5. He's very kindly made a window for us. But before we head down to Kaapzicht to catch up with Danie, let's go to the Ken Forrester estate, where Ken's son-in-law, Lo Stradum, an itinerant golf partner of mine, and a man who has had many years already, despite his relative youth, in the wine industry, joins us to talk about Chenin Day, plus some bubbles and some Roussanne. I'd say very good evening to Mr. Lo Stradum. How are you, Lo?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm very well. You're looking enormously relaxed there. I know you generally work half day, so it's probably been a good afternoon. And lovely to have you.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. And unfortunately, I'm not actually at the estate at the moment. I'm busy on the road, trying to sell some wine down in Mossel Bay in the Garden Route. So I'm staying in Mossel Bay tonight.
Translation: he played Fancourt today and he's playing Pinnacle Point tomorrow. It's a good life when you're a wine salesman. Speaking of golf, now I have to, by introduction, run through. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago now. You were still with the Else team, I think, at that stage, and we're over at the Alpha Dunhill, and we played the Sunday morning at King's Barnes on a relatively nice day by Scottish standards. And I think it was 3 of us. It was you, me, and Ruben Riffle, although it felt like just 2 of us, because I think we teed off together, and that was pretty much all we saw of you for the day, Lo Stradum.
Yeah, Dan, I kind of vaguely recall that day. It's kind of a suppressed memory at this stage. But now, unlike yourself and Ruben, it was my first sojourn to Scotland, and I wanted to see a bit of the countryside. So I stuck to the rough mostly, and I think you've once famously referred to it that I was at one stage close to Wales.
You were indeed. I think Brexit regulations might have kicked in if you played the same round of golf at the moment. It was still a great deal of fun, as was that event as a whole. It's a brilliant event. And while the golf holds the stage and the celebrities catch the eye of everybody, the wine does play an important part. And it is a lovely opportunity to showcase to some fairly influential people around the world some fantastic South African wine.
No, definitely. I mean, the Dunhill has always been something that I, whilst working at Danie Wines, I cherish. It was obviously highlights of the calendar. But to get South African wines in front of such a crowd of influential individuals is amazing. I mean, you yourself, with your connections, the guys like the Jamie Dornans of the world and the Shane Warnes, and there they are drinking our wines. And then now on Dan Nicol, you've had recently the drummer from Linkin Park, was it Nickelback? I can't remember. Who was on the show drinking our wines, and yeah, it's just such an amazing platform or springboard for South African wine.
And it tells the story which you are now continuing at Ken Forrester, which is taking South African wine around the world, and in
Correct.
particular the Chenin Blanc that we champion so happily, in which the world is lapping up in increasing volumes and at increasing prices as the higher end Chenin Blanc finds homes in cellars and restaurants, hotels around the world. And that leads us in to the 18th of June. I suspect this is also Ken Forrester's birthday. That's probably why they made it Drink Chenin Day. It's a very special day for you, a particularly special day for Ken and the Chenin Blanc Association.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, as you rightly know, like each variety sort of has an allocated day of the year to make some noise and celebrate with. And, recently we had Chardonnay and there was Sauvignon Blanc, and each of the different societies or associations do what they can to get momentum behind their preferred variety. And us as Ken Forrester Wines, and Ken being sort of the father of Chenin Blanc in South Africa, or at least the father of the revolution of Chenin Blanc in South Africa, we take the day quite seriously. And as teamed up with the Chenin Blanc Association, along with Ina Smith, and obviously Ken being an ex-chairman of the association, it really is something that we put a lot of effort into every year to try and beat the drum for Chenin Blanc. So on the 18th of June, we are hosting a really cool event on the farm.
And that event is called Chenin and Sushi, which is the theme this year, because that's how we roll. Drink Chenin Day, a day that people can be part of, and there's quite an interesting Asian theme this year, Lo.
Yeah, it's for us. Obviously, every year we try and look at a theme of Chenin to do with something else. I think it's also value add for the clientele who come around on the day, because there are tickets usually for sale. And we settled on something like sushi this year because naturally Chenin Blanc just pairs so well with seafood in general. And us being such Chenin or sushi, for instance, in South Africa has really come a long way in the last 10, 15 years. If you think of a place like Cape Town Fish Market and everything else that comes through. But now in Stellenbosch, you've got a place like Genki, which is really serving up amazing sushi that almost rivals that of the famous Willoughby's in Cape Town itself. And wine like Chenin's just pairs so phenomenally well with that type of cuisine. And on top of that, the other angle we've taken this year is to approach WOSA, which is Wines of South Africa, the marketing body that take care of marketing our wines abroad, and our newfound revived relationship with Japan. And we're actually going to have one of Japan's most famous sommeliers dial in on the day and give his input about where he thinks Chenin's going and the type of revolution that we've had over the last couple of years with Chenin Blanc, along with a brief history of sushi, and for him, how sushi and Chenin Blanc pair together. So it's a really exciting day.
And it is a day that Dan Really Likes Wine will be part of. We'll be joining Ken and Ina and the Chenin Blanc Association on Friday the 18th. There will be some limited tickets available to be there in person. We'll also be doing some stuff virtually, and the chance to have a wonderful Asian-themed day out and celebrate a combination of great food and great wine. Speaking of great wine, we've got two to drink with you today. And this is one, look, I've tasted it before, so I can be a little flippant about it because I know what it's like. But we know that Ken has got a medical condition. He's clinically obsessed with Chenin Blanc. He would make Cabernet Sauvignon out of Chenin Blanc if he thought he could. And he's probably tried at some point. Cap Classique out of Chenin Blanc. The uninitiated, well, Cap Classique Champagne, it should be a Blanc de Blanc just out of Chardonnay, or Pinot Noir, maybe some Meunier, and anything outside of that, well, that raises a bit of an eyebrow. Cap Classique out of Chenin Blanc. PR stunt for the world of Chenin, or something that actually works?
Something that actually works. I think, the whole world is kind of caught up with champagne in that sense, because it is the historic home of the style of wine. And if you've rightly just said now, it's usually based off of, or especially in France, we're using Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, or Pinot Meunier, either those varieties on their own or in a blend, or what they call a cuvée themselves. But obviously you can't call it champagne unless it's from Champagne. So what we've done in South Africa over many years already, led by the amazing estates such as Simonsich and Graham Beck and Valera, and some of the big pundits out there, has taken it and given it a South African spin and used the traditional method, or the method traditional, as the base for which, to make champagne from. So it's a secondary fermentation. So the wine doesn't go through one but two ferments. And we obviously couldn't call it champagne, so we had to come up with our own name. And originally it was called Method Cap Classique, but now, as of the last year or so, we've just gone with Cap Classique. So that's now the preferred and correct, if you want to call it vernacular, as Cap Classique, and it refers to the style of wine. And if the wine hasn't gone through two fermentations, it won't necessarily be called Cap Classique. Then you get the other variants of what we call sparkling wine, where they literally just take some wine and spurge with CO2 or whatever else. But in South Africa, Chenin really plays so well towards making a sparkling wine or a Cap Classique, given its inherent acidity in the grape itself, because that's really what you want in production of champagne-inspired wines, is a real great base off of which to start, and that all boils down to a core of acidity. So in different parts of the world, you can use different varieties, but obviously South Africa and us as Chenin Blanc, basically the home of Chenin Blanc in South Africa, not just us as a brand, is Ken Forrester, but South Africa as a category. When people think South Africa, they think white wine, they think Chenin Blanc. It only just makes sense to go with the Cap Classique route and make it from 100% Chenin. And it's not a new thing. I mean, the French have actually been doing it for a long time. Places like Loire Valley, outside of Champagne itself, if you're not in the designated region of Champagne, you can use other grape varieties. And then they call it Crémant, I believe. And then, those are really affordable wines made from other varieties, such as Chenin. You can even use Sauvignon Blanc if you want, if you're part of the German following called Sect.
So we have something that the French have done before, and we have now improved upon, not the first time.
Exactly.
It's not something we see very often in South Africa.
No.
Was Ken the first person to do this? And from that, what's the challenge with making a Cap Classique out of Chenin Blanc as opposed to some of the more traditional varietals?
So I might talk under correction here, because obviously, certain brands might get a bit annoyed, but Ken was definitely amongst the first, if not in the first top three in the country, to go 100% Chenin Blanc from a Cap Classique perspective. And yeah, the challenges we see with making a Cap Classique is not unlike any other challenge with any other vintage. You really need to just be cautious of the weather patterns leading up to the harvest. Given the fact that we are chasing acidity, we actually tend to harvest these grapes much earlier than we would if we were just making normal still wine from them. So our harvest of Cap Classique starts sometimes in the second week in January, whereas if we're going for normal white wines, we're going towards the end of January, if not into the second week of Feb, because we really have to go nail the grapes at that right, acidity level, as I already mentioned to you before, with the which is the core and the base from which to make the wine. So I would say sometimes maybe the Chardonnay producers might have a little bit tougher of a time, because Chardonnay can also be a kind of, and Pinot Noir as well, not a fickle grape, but a tough grape to handle, given your growing conditions, but all depends on terroir and where you farm the grapes. But for us, it really was just a stroke of luck, in the sense of where our vineyard that we started making our Chenin from, or our Cap Classique from, which is right in front of our cellar door. It's about a 2.2 hectare block of Chenin planted in 1974. And it was also a bit of a need, because, and I might just go off story a bit, but if you look at the block itself, it kind of dipped in the middle, and you had the shoulders of the block and then this little dip in the middle of the block. And for so many years, the shoulders of the block ripened perfectly throughout the growing season when we still made our normal wine from it, whereas the dip in the middle kind of lagged behind the ripening process. And Ken could not necessarily put his finger on it. And after many years, you realize that acted kind of as a capture, a trough almost. And the water just stayed there after the good rains that we used to have in 2014, 15, and all that sorts of years, and just lagged the progression of the ripening of the Chenin. So he just saw an opportunity to actually take advantage of this lag in ripening from a phenolic perspective. So you get your phenolics that are up, but still a core of acidity versus too much sugar in the grape itself. And that just happened to be the perfect thing from which to make Cap Classique for us.
And it has worked out. It's also got a very cool label and a very catchy name. The sparkle is lovely, and that would be enough in itself. Is there anything more to it? Yeah,
so obviously Ken being Ken, marketing 101 is your wine has to jump off the label, right? I mean, off the shelf, because we operate in such a competitive market. And generally speaking, your M to C's or the capital C labels are quite traditional. And Ken didn't want to necessarily conform to that because we haven't conformed to the traditional methods of making it using Chenin as opposed to the other more popular varieties. So he went with obviously the Chenin Blanc, but then the Sparkle Horse itself. So it's called Sparkle Horse, and Chenin Blanc being the workhorse variety of South Africa, because it's still the most widely planted grape variety in the country. It has always been termed a workhorse variety. And Ken made a label for Marks and Spencer's in the United Kingdom called the Workhorse. And for him, he just felt that this is a natural progression from that into a Sparkle Horse because it's got the bubble and everything else. And one cold evening walking in London, him and through Hyde Park, him and his wife Teresa came across this carousel right when Ken was in the middle of doing this project, because bear in mind it takes 3 years for these wines to actually come to market. So he had a bit of time to think about the label. And in winter, you get these beautiful winter wonderlands in Hyde Park, and there was this carousel going past, and you just saw this beautiful little horse going up and down. And he snapped a photo of it and said, "That's my label for my Sparkle Horse." Came back to South Africa, handed it to the designer, and said, "Listen, for once, I don't want you to use your creative license. I want you to almost copy paste that horse on this photo and put it on the label." And you've got to give credit where credit's due to the designer. She came back and said that the creative person in her couldn't not alter the label. So all she did was change the direction of the horse. So it was originally facing to the left, and obviously now it faces to the right.
All right, lovely story and lovely wine. If you haven't tried Cap Classique out of Chenin Blanc or Sparkle Horse, is your opportunity. Build up to Drink Chenin Day on the 18th of June. Whenever we talk about Ken Forrester, we tend to drift into Chenin Blanc and not often leave, and there's a reason for that. It's a benchmark grape, and you guys do it terrifically, but it's not all that you do. So I wanted to try one other wine of yours before we head off to Danie between his braais, and that is a grape that many people will know little to nothing at all about, because it's not something we see a huge amount of. You guys make some, and not just as part of a blend, but you have it as a single varietal. Introduce us to Roussanne, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and tell us what that's about.
You've actually almost nailed the pronunciation. It is Roussanne or Roussanne. And it is a really great variety to actually work with. There's not a lot of it in South Africa. We have access to a very finite block, and it's become a very popular wine actually in our portfolio. And a lot of people might not know it, but they probably have drunk Roussanne, like you've just mentioned, in a blend somewhere. So you would know that we, apart from our Chenin Blanc ambitions as a brand, we really love Rhone and Rhone varietals from a red perspective. And in that valley, in the south of France, in the Rhone Valley, there are other grape varieties outside of the red wine varieties that do grow, such as Viognier, Roussanne, Marsanne, Grenache Blanc, all these other really interesting white wines. And traditionally they are used in a blend, and blends in places like they make them in Hermitage, and they kind of be these beautiful, big, oaky, round textured, full-bodied white wines. And then Ken just saw an opportunity to again, try and lead a category like he did with Chenin Blanc so many years ago. And we had access to a block of Roussanne, and he thought, let's just do this little project on the side and include it in what we term our seller exclusive brand, which is effectively, treating clients who come to the property where originally you could only buy this wine at the seller itself and not necessarily in the mainstream market. And given that success, it just really took off. So Roussanne, I kind of like to refer to it, anybody who's familiar with the brand, as a baby FMC, because it really touches so many of the same sort of, or ticks so many of the same boxes that FMC does. It's big, it's round, it's beautiful and golden in color. It's got beautiful aromatics of peaches, apricots, chamomile, all the type of stuff that you really figure out. Like it's a journey for the senses. And yeah, it's really just been a awesome little grape to work with, and it's one of our best exported wines as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of it to sell in South Africa, because my brother-in-law Martinez, who represents our brand in North America, sells almost every bottle we have to Montreal in Canada. So if you do get a chance, go online, wherever you have to, come visit us at the cellar and purchase this bottle, because it is truly a magnificent bottle of wine.
There's a lovely perfume to it. The aromatics are great. It's also possibly the only wine I've seen in South Africa which, on the back of the label, recommends it as a pairing with grilled anchovies. Low Stratum.
You know, I'm going to be blatantly honest here. I've never been too, I gotta say, growing up, I was never too adventurous with my food choices. I think my mom would have a chuckle at that expression. As a guy who probably had his first meal outside of a rice place in Aardappel, and added like greens to it when I was 23 or 24. It's been a journey of discovery for me the last couple of years, especially since joining the Forrester family, who are foodies of note. And yes, grilled anchovies actually do work. That heart of that anchovy with this, the anchovies somewhat got that kind of like a bitter finish on the tongue. With a type of sweetness, I don't know. It's just the most amazing pairing when you do it. And you think it looks like I'm talking, you know, a bunch of bollocks here. But when you do go through Ken's kitchen in the evenings, he comes up with some interesting combinations of food. Being a chef from hotel school so many years ago, the man has got an imagination, and these pairings just work. They really do. And Ken takes great pride in writing their food recommendations on the back of his own labels. So if it's there, it's been tried to test it in Ken's kitchen, and it no doubt is a really great pairing.
It may have been tried and tested at 3 o'clock in the morning after 9 bottles of return, but it has been tried and tested. The great Greg Sherwood, who recently bought the Isle of Man. He's done quite well for himself. I'm eating at the top restaurants in Cowes, the Isle of Wight. So he bought the Isle of Wight, that's it. Isle of Wight tonight, the Smoking Lobster. And one of their best sellers is the FMC Chenin. I'll be ordering a bottle. It is a wine I've seen plenty of restaurants abroad. It's always lovely to see our South African wine doing well all over
Thanks,
the place.
Greg.
So there we go, Greg Sherwood giving us great support. Look out, Greg and myself will be joining our UK supporters with the South African Wine Tribe. That's coming up in a few weeks' time. We'll give you some details of that early on next week. Before we let you get back and prepare for tomorrow morning's tea time at Pinnacle Point, just a reminder for us, Drink Chenin Day is the 18th of June, and the chance to come down, keep an eye on your pages, on the Chenin Association pages, full details, but the chance to come and have a Chenin and Asian fusion exploration.
Correct. Yeah. 18th of June, that's the day it's going to be. And look out for our social media, whether it's us as Ken Forrester Wines or any of the leading Chenin Blanc producers. Danie and them also, no doubt, be participating. And it is really something to look forward to. And as I said, there will be 3 sessions throughout the day on Friday, the 18th of June. Last time I remember, we discussed about 24 seats per session. Obviously, we want to be respectful to the COVID protocols, so we're not going to be cramming people into a tight little room. And it's definitely going to be a fun event to take part of and just celebrate South Africa's most famous grape variety, which is Chenin Blanc. And I think every South African should do their part.
And from the set of what appears to be an adult movie somewhere in George, that will do us for Low Stratum for tonight. The global head of sales, marketing, and modest amounts of work at Ken Forrester Industries. Hello, thank you very much. Lovely to chat to you. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Ciao.
And there we go. The son-in-law of the great Ken Forrester. Ken's daughter has questionable taste, which is a lovely, lovely woman. All right, let's move on to our second guest this evening. And he's somebody else who's got a fair hand for Chenin, as Lo alluded to just a moment ago. But then he's got a fair hand for pretty much all wine, because I've yet to try a bottle of Kaapzicht that I haven't A, thoroughly enjoyed, B, thought, crikey, are they not charging more for this? But don't tell him I told you this, or he might put his prices up. A very good evening, Mr. Danie Steytler. Welcome back to Dan Really Likes Wine.
Thanks, Dan, the man. Nice to see you again.
It is always a pleasure. Before we jump into your new range of the wines we're going, it makes sense to have a quick word about Chenin. Drink Chenin Day is just a couple of weeks away. We talk about it continuously, and we talk about how Chenin Blanc is doing all these wondrous things. You make some gobsmackingly good Chenin Blanc at the moment, and it's wine that is massively popular. How much is Chenin Blanc driving Kaapzicht at the moment? How big a wine is it for you, both domestically and in terms of wine you send abroad?
No, it's definitely one of the more important wines for us, or the most important white. Yeah. So we love the wine. We think like Ken, he's the king of the Chenin, and we very much try and follow that suit that Chenin is the South African thing. We're very proud of it, and we just try and express it as best we can here. And it is a lovely varietal. We'll definitely be throwing a big party on the 18th. So yeah.
All right, across the country, yet another day that should be a public holiday. We really got to work harder on these. All right, you've got a really exciting new range that is out, and it is one that speaks to the family heritage because it is another Steytler. It is the Jacques Steytler range. Before we try it, and you give us some more detail on it, tell us about Jacques Steytler.
Okay, so it's a partnership between a mate of mine, Jacques Steytler, and us, the Steytler family. So Jacques is actually the brainchild behind it. He, was chatting with Pick n Pay, and he saw that there's opportunity to make a nice wine, but at a cheaper price point. He's got lots of experience in this field. He comes from Alpi's Drift, and he managed to pull this through. And he approached me to be the production side of this arm, and we've just launched, and it's I think going to be in the Pick n Pays. What is there already, but it'll be I think on some form of a special coming up now in June, July. So hopefully people try it and they like it.
When you're creating something like this, you've got a terrific brand already. It's very well established. Kaapzicht is a favorite of many people, and it's a wine that delivers great quality at an even better price. And I think that has become very much your hallmark. How much of an impact does it have? How much do you have to think about doing something like this? Because yes, on one hand, it looks like a great opportunity, but on the other hand, you've already got a really good business and you don't want one to take away from the other. How does that balancing act work?
You must ask the marketing people those type of questions. For me, we're a relatively large estate. We produce just over 1 million liters, but we're only bottling less than half under the Kaapzicht brand. So I've got quite a lot of bulk wine, and the same for a lot of my neighbors around me that sell grapes rather than wine. And bulk industry is having a very tough time at the moment. We costs more to make the wine than what we get for it. So with the help of Pick n Pay, we've now found a channel where we can put our bulk wines and hopefully deliver a quality product at small margins, but not a loss, which is at least a big benefit.
Trying times for the wine industry. The beneficiaries of all of this might not be your accountants, but they will be those of us who are drinking the wine and getting some terrific stuff at a really good price. And that price, if I look at it, I think your wine is this range is 65 rand a bottle. I think next month at Pick n Pay it's down to 55 rand a bottle, which for a winemaker of your caliber suggests something to dash out and try, provided of course it is any good, Danie, and that is what we are about to find out. We've got the Merlot, we've got the Reserve. Just give us a breakdown of the whole range though. What makes up this selection?
Okay, so we've got 6 SKUs. We've got Sauvignon Blanc, which is very popular with South Africans. We focus more on Chenin here at Kaapzicht, so I need an outlet for the Sauvignon. Then we've got a rosé, which is Pinotage rosé, which we're very fond of, and I think it's a nice light, crisp wine. Then we're doing the Chardonnay as well. It's lightly wooded, and that's only one of the 6 that's not been bottled because that needs a bit longer time on the lease and on the oak. So that will probably only launch in September. Then we've got 3 reds, a Merlot, which is the most sold class of wine in South Africa. So there had to be a Merlot. Then we do a Pinotage, which is, for me, I think one of the important varietals from Kaapzicht. And then we do the Founders Reserve, which is a blend, and that's a Shiraz Cab blend. So a nice spread, I think, and hopefully the people enjoy it. I think at the price point, we believe it delivers good value for money. So hopefully people that try it will think so too.
Well, if you need any further confirmation of Danie's winemaking caliber, Greg Sherwood, who's coming to us from his 8-floor estate on the Isle of Wight. Danie's Chenin Blancs and Cinsaults doing so well here in the UK. A real torch leader. Well done, Danie. Well, if Greg Sherwood is giving you applause, you know you're doing something right. The two wines we're trying tonight are that Merlot and the Reserve. You talk about Merlot being the biggest sold, most by volume in South Africa. Just your personal feel, is that because South Africans genuinely love Merlot, or is there an element to which we tend to drink our wine really, really young, and the accessibility of Merlot and that kind of bright, easy fruit at an early stage in existence just means that if you pick up a Merlot at the same age as you do a Cab or a Shiraz, it's the Merlot that's going to sit a lot more accessibly on the palate.
Yeah, definitely the second there. Yeah, Merlot is just a gentle varietal and often just a nice, fruity, easy drinking wine. So that's also the type of style we're trying to approach here, not too edgy, just nice and flush and supple. So yeah, hopefully you like it. I don't know if you've tried it yet. I was waiting for you for the last 15 minutes. I've drunk half a bottle, so it does go down quite nicely, I think.
All right, well, I have my very, very first glass. I'm about to try it. This is the Danie Steytler. I'm a little bit disappointed. I was hoping Danie Steytler was like this 300-year-old family hero who single-handedly won battles at sea or discovered Uganda or done something. It's just two mates putting their names together. So that will do. It's the wine that must tell the real story. So here we go. Deep breath, Danie Steytler. I tell you what my first response would be, and it's probably a response I could have given you before I even drank the wine, which was that if I didn't know this was as of this month, 55 Rand a bottle of wine, I would certainly not have said it is a 55 Rand bottle of wine. I wouldn't have said it's a 500 Rand bottle of wine, but it's certainly not giving me the suggestion that I can get a couple of bottles for 100 Rand and change and drink something that is exactly what you've just been saying. It's gentle, it's unassuming, it's not bland, because that's a criticism that Merlot sometimes faces, which I don't think is justified a lot of the time, sometimes, not a lot of the time. And this is not, there's still plenty of fruit, and there's a little bit of tannin just picking it up. But it's certainly more than a 55 Rand bottle of wine. So I'm going to be buying a bit more while the prices stay as they are, Mr. Steytler.
Cool, I'm glad. Yeah, so Jacques's got a story. I think Jacques Mouton was also the first, the French Huguenots to come to France. So that was on his side of the family, and we were playing a long time with the name. We wondered if it should be Steenkamp and Steytler or Mouton and Steytler, because that's his brand, Jacques Mouton. But I think we would have gotten a couple of gears from Mouton Rothschild if we'd gone Mouton Steytler. So we went the safe route with just Jacques Steytler.
All right, well, it's worked out, and you've got plenty of fans looking to drink it around the world. Josephine Prieur, who's busy watching from France. Bonjour, Danie Jr., missing your wonderful wines here in France. Hope in November 2021 to discover your Chardonnay. Bonsoir, Josephine. Bienvenue, comme d'habitude. Lovely to have you with us. You just got fans everywhere, don't you? You're like this pin-up boy of wine, Danie Steytler.
Yeah, Josephine, lovely person. Thanks very much. She sells fantastic barrels, which we use for the Chenin and the Chard.
Well, she also says, we'll always remember your wonderful Reserve Kaapzicht with the wonderful South African braai with your family. And that leads me, I need to check this bottle, because I think every single Kaapzicht bottle, we talked earlier about the Ken Forrester and how Ken, in a moment of inebriation, put up on the label that it paired well with grilled anchovies. I think every single bottle of your wine simply says, goes lekker with a braai. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, man. That's the way you should be drinking wine. Light the fire, grill some meat, and drink some wine.
All right, yeah. If you're a vegan, maybe don't go around to dinner at Danie Steytler's house. It's probably not going to be a huge amount of fun. Just one more on this Merlot and the style of it. It's very much a wine to to buy now, to drink now. This is not something you're putting a couple of cases away for your kid's 21st in 15 years' time.
No. It's a drink now wine. That's unfortunately most people buy wines and drink them with the first 48 hours, and and that's why winemakers start making these easily accessible wines. I still feel though that the reserve style, which those are slightly more expensive wines, they probably need to be put away for a few years. But yeah, this range is to drink now. I mean, it's not going to fall over in the next 2 years, so it's safe to keep if you do want to cellar them for a little bit, but they are good to go.
All right. Well, that is the first of the two. This is the second here, and this is the Founders Reserve, which is the Shiraz and Cabernet, as Danie and Jacques come together. So this one probably headlines the range, so to speak. What prompted the decision to use this in particular as your blend of choice?
I think the main decision was we looked at what we have in the winery. So the big four that we have planted in the red side is Pinotage, Cabernet, Shiraz, and Merlot. And at Kaapzicht, we're trying to streamline slightly. So Chenin is what we're definitely focusing on the white side, and the other varietals will become blending partners or be pulled out over time and replace the Chenin. And on the red side, Pinotage and Cab are the two that we'll focus on. But it's good to have a bit of Merlot, a bit of Petit, a bit of Shiraz, these type of things. Almost like a little bit of salt and pepper to add in a blend and so on. So when we looked at the range and we said, right, let's use Pinotage and Merlot as single varietals, and then we'll do a blend, then Shiraz and Cab just comes naturally because I've still got quite a lot of that left. And the two go well together. The Shiraz adds a bit of spice and nice violet fruit, and the Cab gives a bit of structure and support to the wine. So, yeah, I think it's a nice wine. Hopefully, you agree.
All right. Let me try it. So this is also the 2019. So again, it's got just a little bit of bottle age just to settle down ever so slightly. Nice and simple. What are the percentages here, Danie?
60% Shiraz, 40% Cab. So the wines were in barrel for roughly a year, and we bottled them just after harvest. Now April, May, we did the first bottling, and quite a lot went out. So we had to do the second bottling now because obviously as it goes out into the stores, it eats a lot more stock than I thought. So we've just done the second bottling. We want the wines to have a bit of time in the bottle, that they're not drunk immediately. So to get over that bottle shock. So I'm quite happy with the wines. The wines how they're showing now. I think if customers go and try it, I'm looking forward to some feedback. You said you had some plans to get the guys out here for a braai.
I think we need to look at possibly some sort of competition. So watch this space, get some people down to Danie Steytler. Did I get the number right? I was trying to follow you on social media end of last year. I think I lost track. As we hit New Year's Eve, you'd hit about 330 braais for 2020.
Yeah, I managed another 10 in the last couple of days, so 340 for the year.
Oh, so that's less than a braai a day. I've got to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed, Danie.
Yes, these marketing people, they sometimes send me to Joburg or Namibia or Natal, and then I can't braai because I'm staying in some hotel. But otherwise, we would have done 365.
And this is a man who has been asked to leave a hotel for starting a braai in his hotel room. This has been documented. I think that's a really nice lead into a question I wanted to ask you right at the start. As we see Johan van Eck jump in. Cheers, Danie. What an icon for our wine industry. Keep going. Thanks, Johan, and thanks for being part of the show this evening. We often talk to our winemakers, and I'll ask them if I'm dropping around for dinner at your house tomorrow, what is going with this dish? This wine, without playing it down too much, without oversimplifying it, I think it is a terrific Bry wine because it's nice, it's simple stuff, it's uncomplicated. It's got a screw cap, so it's harder to spill, which is also rather important when you're drinking wine around a Bry. But you are far beyond the Arola Bourrivos and a couple of chops kind of guy. You are somewhere between artist and scientist when it comes to Brying. So I've got the Merlot. I've got the Cab Shiraz blend. Give us two of the Danie Steytler Bry signatures that will be accompanying these two particular wines.
Okay. I might go with a little peri peri platunertjie with the Merlot. That might work quite nicely. And then a little staan ribbetjie, a little Karoo lamb rib next to the fire while you're preparing your braaibroodjies or something else. That should work quite well with a Shiraz Cab.
All right, a pretty good collection. It's a range that is only at Pick n Pay, and it is available now, and it is, I think, delivering some very pleasant wine at an even more pleasing price point. So that kind of midweek bottle, it's doing a job really, really nicely indeed. And as Danie suggests, it's flying off the shelves a little, so he's having to work particularly hard to restock. And it's these are a couple we've had tonight from a slightly broader range. Just beyond that, and before we let you go, I know you mentioned a little earlier the Pinotage Rosé part of this particular range. They're also in the Kaapzicht family, and again that I know you've had a lot of success with. What else is on the broader Kaapzicht horizon for 2021?
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of little things up our sleeve. There's big work and doing the labels over. So we're 75 years on the farm this year. We're going to celebrate that probably in line with Bry Day, month of September. We'll try and launch the new look, and with that, try and modernize the wine slightly. So the newer wines, maybe not as rustical as in the past, slightly more modern, which I think is the way to go. We're also bringing out a new Pinotage, which I still got to think a name for. We don't know what it's going to be called yet. So as soon as we find a name, then we can print labels. But it's a lighter style of Pinotage because we're trying to, we've got the traditional Kaapzicht, we've got the Steytler, which sits on top. But I wanted one that's a little bit more accessible and shows the versatility of Pinotage. So that's a new product. Then we're bringing out a new blend, which will replace, the Bin 3 and Estate Red, which I'm worried to do because I think those two wines have been, stalwarts for us. But if we can make something that's even better and merge the two into one, then I think that's the way to go. So a couple of things that's up our sleeve, but exciting times ahead, I think.
Indeed there are, but that's pretty much always the case at Kaapzicht, where we're going to work on this. I've pledged to Danie, look out a little later on this year for a cool competition that will be sending you on your way to Kaapzicht to Bry with Danie as I watch on with a fire extinguisher and we make our way through a pretty special evening. Danie, thank you so much for the time this evening. It's always an enormous pleasure when you escape the Cape and get back up to Johannesburg. We look forward to seeing you here and vice versa. And well done. It's a lovely range, and I think it does hit a really nice sweet spot in the wine space, and one that, as the numbers have already shown, is more than delivered. So thank you for it. Thank you for the time, and here's to a couple of Brys together soon.
Thanks, Dan. Always lovely chatting to you. Thanks for your time and for your support. I look forward to Brying with you soon.
There we go. Danie Steytler, world Bry champion and occasional winemaker, with his new Jacques Steytler range, which is sitting on the shelves of Pick n Pay at the moment. 65 Rand, normally done at 55 Rand for the month going. I think it is a rather good deal. Josephine Prieur, au revoir, Danie, and nice to see you, Dan. Most welcome, Josephine. On espère que nous allons retourner en Afrique du Sud in the next little while. It'd be great to have you back here in your second home. And that just leaves me to do a couple of things. Is to remind you the Pick and Pay Wine Club chance to join. If you haven't already, SMS your Smart Shopper number to 36775, and that gets you 3 times the Smart Shopper points on all wines, as well as 20% off 10 great bottles every single month. Deals on cases, deals on magnums, and the chance to have some really cool events. We had one last week, an online wine dinner with Warwick that was loads of fun, and there's one coming up on the 24th of June with Paul Kluver to look out for as well. Also look out for a competition this month at Pick and Pay with Simonsig. You can win yourself, how's that? Sure, over 5,000 Rand worth of wine. Simonsig, the home of Cup Classique, gave us our very first one 50 years ago this year, and we're celebrating Cup Classique across 2021. Buy any bottle of Simonsig wine, not just the Cup Classique, any of the wines they have from Simonsig. You'll go into that draw as a member of the wine club, and you could win yourself over 5,000 Rand worth of Simonsig wine. And then finally, the competition that launches today. You'll see stuff up on our social media channels. You can win for yourself a case of Chardonnay from Bartony, a case of Chardonnay from De Wetsoff, or a case of Chardonnay from Paul Kluver. And that competition will be going up straight after this, just after Chardonnay Day. And the rules are very simple. Just tell us why you like Chardonnay on Facebook, on Instagram, or on Twitter. Tag the 3 estates, plus Dan Really Likes Wine, and the chance to win an enormously cool prize. Right, that does it for now. Thursday. Thursday, Stellenzucht. New ownership. Has it changed what they're doing? Well, Lorraine Berger is the winemaker, and she'll give us a lowdown, plus taste a couple of the new look wines from Stellenzucht. And we will also this week, I think tomorrow, be checking out the new releases from Epicurean as we meet one of the founders of the bespoke label that's had such an impact on the quality and fine wine market here in South Africa. Also look out for some news on the Old Mutual Wine Trophy. Michael Friedjon and his army of judges are hard at work on that at the moment. I think platter tasting has begun as well for next year. There's just lots happening in the wine industry at the moment, and it is really, really exciting. Included in that is the 18th of June, where we will be down with the Chenin Blanc South Africa team, Chenin Blanc Association, and celebrating Asian food, Chenin Blanc, some sommeliers from around the world, including to Japan, and a wine that's just doing such wonderful things for South Africa. Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate the time. We'll see you again live Thursday evening. Goodbye.